What's up, guys? It's Coach Cam. Today I want to go over how to build muscle. So the inspiration for this video came from a post I watched on Instagram where it took this guy about 8 minutes to explain how to build muscle, and throughout the entire video he never actually hit on the stimulus. He just talked about all these side variables like how much protein you should eat and how often you should train. So instead, I'm going to give you my take on what is building muscle, what does that mean, and how do you accomplish that. So to start off, let's start off with the most important factor, which is the training stimulus itself, right? The stimulus that you put upon your body in the gym, right? So this stimulus comes from contracting your muscles. This can be producing force in an isometric fashion or in a dynamic fashion in which you are moving a weight. Now, you want the exercise you're doing to challenge that muscle's function. So for the chest, it's humeral adduction, bringing the arm in toward the center of the body is the function of the chest. This happens when you do a push-up or when you do a chest press machine or even some extent to a barbell bench press. So once you know somewhat of your muscles' functions, most people don't even try to learn that. They just start copying other people's movements. You can pick exercises to target your muscles directly. Now, what is the stimulus for building a muscle? Well, it is recruiting muscle fibers in a sequential pattern until you can no longer perform the exercise, right? We call this muscle failure. You recruit muscle fibers, starting with the smallest muscle fibers in a sequential fashion. As those fatigue out, your body has to recruit more muscle fibers, bigger muscle fibers to continue the exercise. So you need enough resistance to the targeted muscle to accomplish this. If the resistance is insufficient, if it is too light, then you will be performing this for minutes on end and you won't ever reach that muscle failure point. And what will be happening is your muscle fibers will start coming back into play and you're just recruiting them in an endurance manner, and you're not actually getting to those type 2 muscle fibers that are mostly responsible for hypertrophy. Both type 1 fibers and type 2 fibers hypertrophy, but type 2 fibers are the ones that hypertrophy more. So we know now the stimulus is training hard. It's not using heavy weight, it's not moving fast, it's challenging your muscles directly with an exercise that you take until the muscle is fully fatigued or fully exhausted. So any point before that during the exercise, you will not be maximizing muscle growth. You may still get plenty of stimulus for muscle growth, especially in the early stages if you're a beginner. But beyond those stages, you're going to have to train hard. You're going to have to push your muscles intensely and to a point that they are uncomfortable and have not been there before, right? You want to make progress over time. So that's the next key point. Making progress on your exercises is going to be the way that you know that you are moving in the right direction. So if you're performing, say, bicep curls, and you're performing the same reps for the same amount of weight, in a couple months from now, you know that you have not actually progressed, you have not pushed your body to new limits in terms of what your biceps are capable of curling, right? So it's important to make sure that you are progressively overloading in this process. Those are the key points. Those are the key components of what it takes to build muscle. Now, there's a lot of other smaller components that are worth mentioning, one of them being protein. You want to consume a high amount of protein per day. How much protein should you consume? Well, you can consume your body weight in grams if you are relatively lean. Your body weight in grams in terms of your body weight in pounds in grams of protein per day if you're relatively lean. But if you are vastly obese and overweight, you do not need to consume your body weight in pounds, in grams of protein. If you weigh 350 pounds and all of it's fat, you don't need to consume 350 grams of protein. Most people will do well consuming between 120 and 200 grams of protein based on your weight. The actual best number is 1.6 times your body weight in pounds. That number is the amount of grams that you don't see much benefit going above that. So that's like a good minimum or a good target goal for you to reach per day in terms of grams of protein. Now, how about training frequency? How often should you train these muscles, right? Well, you actually only want to train them as frequently enough to actually make progress. If you're training them earlier than that and you're not actually progressing when you show up to the workout, maybe that workout is just making you more fatigued and you're not actually taking steps toward making progress. So judge your frequency based on what it takes for you to make progress on your exercises. Now, the stronger you are and the more advanced you are, you might need to take more days between training that exact movement or those muscles, right? Depends on what we're talking about. However, you do not need to train every muscle 2 times a week or 3 times a week. That does not guarantee that you're building muscle. What about the pump? Should you be chasing, having a pump in your muscles? No, you should not chase a pump. That's like chasing after the wind. You know, you'll get one sometimes you don't. It's not a direct marker of muscle growth being stimulated. You could do several sub-maximal sets with really short rest periods and experience some sort of a pump. Doesn't mean you actually made any progress, right? So do not chase the pump. Do not chase frequency. Remain realistic with what it takes, and don't forsake the first things we talked about, being that high effort and high intensity, and being the progressive overload that you are bringing to your workouts. So beyond that, you just need to make sure that you are not only recovering from the training, but you also need to actually adapt and see some positive change, which is your next workout, trying to make progress. So like, whether it's the amount of reps you performed, the weight you used, the time that you took to hit muscle failure, all these are really good measurements to know that you are making progress in the right direction. I could say more general stuff like you want to sleep, 8 hours, 9 hours. You want to rest. You don't want to be so active that you are taking away resources that could and should be used to not only recover but actually build muscle tissue. I could say that you want to eat in a calorie surplus, because eating in a calorie surplus gives you that much more advantage and assurance that you are building muscle. However, you can still build muscle eating a calorie maintenance or a calorie deficit. Provided the stimulus is strong enough, you should still be able to build muscle. Maybe not everyone in every single circumstance. So that's why eating a calorie surplus can be a little bit more helpful. Outside of that, there's really not much more to say on the topic. You want to train the muscles, push hard, progress over time. Those are the majors. Now the minors are eating a very specific amount of protein, getting a very specific amount of sleep, drinking a very specific amount of water. These things are not going to play that big of a role in your results. Ultimately, your results and your response to weight training is largely genetic. So if you're a smaller person, say you have smaller wrists, smaller feet, smaller hands, smaller ankles, smaller bones, you're shorter, all these types of things can play into you not having that much muscle that you can put on your frame. Whereas you have other people who are taller, bigger, have bigger hands, bigger wrists, bigger feet, bigger ankles, broader shoulders, and they have tendon insertions that have long muscle bellies so their bodies can fill the muscle tissue more. So all these factors come into play as to whether you get super duper jacked or whether you just look average. It's completely up to your genetics, but I would make sure, if I were you, that I was training as hard as possible, that I was recovering, and I was making progress each and every time that I trained to the best of my ability. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. This is Coach Cam. Like, share, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.